Hi everyone, today I'm going to be going over Anatomy of a Flower, which is in topic 9.4 of the HL/IB Biology syllabus. So as you can see here, this is the diagram of a flower, which is the reproductive organ of angiospermophytes, which are basically flowering plants. So flowers contain both the male and female reproductive structures. The female reproductive structures include the stigma, the style, and the ovule. So the function of the stigma is basically to catch the pollen. As a result, it is generally sticky and also kind of hangs outside of the plant, as you can see, outside of the flower, sorry, as you can see here, making it more easy to access for insects and pollinators. Let me just write that down. Secondly, we have the style, which is a tube that essentially connects the stigma and the ovule together. When a pollen tube grows to transfer the pollen grains from the stigma to the ovule, it grows through this style. The style also elevates the stigma outside of the flower, as I mentioned before, to help it catch the pollen. Thirdly, we have the ovule. This structure contains the female reproductive cells, or the female gametes. After fertilization, the ovule will develop into a seed. So as you can see, these female reproductive parts are the ones that are highlighted pink on the flower. Secondly, we have the male reproductive parts of the plant, which includes the anther and the filament. So the anther is the pollen-producing organ of the flower, meaning that and pollen is the male gamete, or the male reproductive cell. Secondly, we have the filament, which is a slender stalk that supports the anther and also makes it accessible to pollinators by holding it outside of the flower, similar to the stigma. So other than the definitions and labeling of the diagram, we also need to know how to draw a simple drawing of the flower and the reproductive structures. So firstly, we can start with the ovule, the style, which leads to the stigma. Then behind this, we need to have the petals. As with all biological drawings, don't shade in. You can also draw some sepals and then the stalk. Sorry, I forgot to mention, other than the male and female reproductive parts of the plant, of the flower, we also need to know about the petal, the sepal, and the peduncle. So the petal is a brightly colored modified leaf which attracts pollinators. The sepal protects the plant, the flower, when it's in a bud. And then the peduncle is the stalk of the flower. Sorry, let's just get back to the drawing now. So as I just mentioned, this is the sepal, peduncle, the petals, Oh, I already labeled the petal. Filament, anthers, stigma, and the style. So yes, it's important for us to be able to know how to draw the flower as well as label it, understand the male and female reproductive parts, where they are on the flower, as well as their purposes. Other than that, that's all that's in the syllabus. Just another interesting point that we don't really need to know is that these structures of the petal, the stigma, the anther will vary based on the way that the flower is pollinated. So for example, wind-pollinated plants wouldn't want to waste their energy and resources on making big, bright leaves to attract insects because they don't need insects to reproduce, right? Instead, they would likely have smaller, dull-colored petals and would invest this energy elsewhere where it would be more useful. Their stigmas would also be more feathery, less sticky, and their pollen seeds would also likely be lighter and more aerodynamic so that they can move efficiently through the wind. In contrast to this, the insect pollinated plant, which is the one that I've been describing here with the big bright petals and the sticky stigma, would have pollen that likely has like grooves on it, also larger in size and stickier, so that it can effectively grab onto the fur of the insects or the small animals, which are its pollinators. So yeah, I hope this video helped. That's all. Thank you for listening. Bye.